over 2 millennia, the name Confucius has been synonymous with wisdom, filial piety and moral philosophy, a venerable sage fostering harmony between people. But to understand the man, we must first forget the myth. We must meet Kong Qiu, a political reformer, a daring idealist whose ambitions shook the foundations of his state and cost him nearly everything. Confucius was born in 551 BC into a world falling apart. Centuries earlier, the powerful Zhou dynasty had established a feudal system, with aristocrats loyal to the Zhou emperor ruling over regional states. But by Confucius's time, the Zhou emperor was a mere figurehead. The feudal lords ruled their states as independent sovereigns and locked in incessant war with each other. Power was further devolved from the lords into the hands of powerful rival families. The ancient order was crumbling. Confucius's own origins were humble. His father was a minor aristocrat and a military officer in the state of Liu. He died when Confucius was only 3. He grew up in poverty with his mother, yet the state of Liu held a unique prestige. It was the fiefdom of the Duke of Zhou, or Zhougong, the revered brother of the Zhou founder. Liu and the Liu people saw their state as the purest repository of Zhou culture, its rituals, music, and codes of conduct. For the young Confucius, then, this became an obsession. He immersed himself in the ancient traditions, believing they were not mere relics, but the blueprint for a perfect society. He famously said on many occasions in the Analects, "I follow the Zhou." His mastery of Zhou culture made him a renowned teacher, polishing young aristocrats. This reputation eventually earned him a high position, Minister of Crime in the state of Liu. But Confucius looked around him and at the state of Liu and saw it as a microcosm of the empire's larger decay. The rightful Duke Ding of Liu, was a puppet. Real power was held by 3 great families, the Qi, Meng and Shu clans. They commanded their own armies, collected their own taxes, and ruled from fortified cities independent from the capital. Confucius conceived of a grand plan of restoration to re-centralize power and return authority to the Duke. He realized the key to the family's power was their fortified city walls. These walls were their tools of independence. And so Confucius made his audacious move. He proclaimed an edict. All defensive walls outside the capital were to be razed. The Duke would provide military protection from external threats. What need have they of their own walls? It was a political masterstroke. To refuse was to be in open treason against the Duke. To comply was to surrender their autonomy and become reliant on the central government. Confucius, the advocate of ritual order, had become a political revolutionary. The plan initially worked. 2 of the 3 families began dismantling their fortifications. But when it came to the city of Cheng, the stronghold of the Meng family, the governor resisted. He convinced the Meng patriarch that without its walls, Cheng was vulnerable to invasion from the powerful state of Qi. The family went back on its word and refused. This failure to dismantle these walls exposed Confucius. His radical plan was halted. He had made powerful, vengeful enemies, and the Duke was too weak to protect him. The historian Sima Qian, in the records of the Grand Historian, or Shiji, records the final insult. The Duke Ding of Liu, distracted by a gift of 80 dancing girls from a rival state, neglected to send Confucius his customary portion of the sacrificial meat, a grave ritual snub. For Confucius, a man whom ritual was meaning itself, this was a clear sign. He was no longer wanted. His political dream was dead. And so, around the age of 50, Confucius made a heartbreaking decision. He chose exile. He left his home state of Liu, and he left behind his family. For 15 long years, he would not see them, and this was the ultimate sacrifice for a man who preached filial duty. Perhaps it was to protect them from the political fallout of his failure, and perhaps because his quest for a ruler who would listen for his vision was now his only path. He wandered from state to state, a teacher without a patron, offering counsel to rulers who were intrigued by his reputation but alarmed by his ideals. He insisted that a ruler must be a ruler, a minister a minister. He spoke of governing through virtue and ritual, not through force and coercion. In an age of warlords, his message fell largely on deaf ears. The Analects paints a picture of these often fruitless travels, a man of unwavering principle in a world of compromise, but not a man alone. Disciples followed him throughout the states. A few years before his death in 479 BC, an old disciple arranged for Confucius's return to Liu. He was welcomed back as a revered elder, but no longer as a minister. His political ambitions behind him, he devoted his final years to teaching. He became, in essence, China's first teacher, opening the doors of knowledge beyond the aristocracy. He taught the 6 arts and transmitted the ancient classics, recorded the Book of Songs, the Book of Documents, ensuring their survival, and even recorded a history of the state he was from, the state of Liu, in the Spring and Autumn Annals. A man whose legacy for history almost overshadows his actions as a politician or moral philosopher, a truly multi-talented man. He died around the age of 72, between 72 and 73 years old. Now, Duke Ai of Liu, not Duke Ding, himself wrote a eulogy. His disciples, who loved him as a father, observed a 3-year mourning period, an unprecedented honour for a teacher. Confucius must have died believing that he failed. He had not restored the Duke of Zhou's glory, nor found a prince to implement his way or his Tao. He never knew that his philosophies, compiled by his disciples in the Analects, would become the foundation of Chinese civilization for 2,000 years after the Han Dynasty. But his story is more profound than this eventual deification. It is the story of a man who rose from poverty and obscurity, who dared to challenge the most powerful forces of his age with a radical vision of a moral world. He was a political actor whose greatest gamble failed, a filial man who sacrificed his family for his principles, and a teacher whose lessons would long outlive the walls he tried to tear down. He was not just a sage, he was Kong Qiu, a man who tried to remake his world, and eventually would.
可你还是要一意孤行，推行礼乐仁义吗？
休惭愧，一无所成。